Okay. So if you could just briefly tell me your story, why you were in prison and how long you were there, and just the rundown of that.
Um, I spent 15 years and 9 months incarcerated in the state of Michigan for a crime that I didn't commit. I was convicted of 2 counts of felony murder, 4 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of arson. The crime involved house fire where 2 children perished. Um, the allegation was that I had set fire to this house by way of Molotov cocktail. I was nowhere around when the crime happened. I didn't even know the crime happened
Wow.
until the
Yeah.
police told me that it had occurred several hours before my arrest. Um,
Wow.
Almost 16 years later, they figured out that it wasn't.
Okay. So how did they find you? Was there like anything that led to you? Like how did that all happen?
Um, there was an allegation by one of the children that survived that he allegedly had seen me at the scene of the crime. And once my name was mentioned, they just locked in on me.
Yeah.
They totally disregarded any evidence of other suspects. The evidence led them in other directions. They chose to ignore it. Once my name was brought up, I was it.
Wow. That's just something I find crazy. I've heard a lot of stories where they just take one piece of information and lock it in, and I just still don't understand how they run with that. Just I find it crazy. So, um
That is what we call
yeah.
a suspect first investigation,
Yeah.
not an evidence first
Yeah.
investigation, as it should be.
Yeah.
You are supposed to let the evidence lead you to the suspect, but
Exactly.
they tend to do it the other way around. In a lot
Yeah.
of these situations, they find the
Yeah.
suspect and then they find the evidence.
Yeah. I know. Makes no sense. Um what was it like to find out you were going to be released?
That was probably the best feeling in the world. To finally know someone had heard my pleas for help and that they'd actually taken the time to look and verify my innocence,
Yeah.
I think was the most grateful experience that I could have ever gone through. Spending that much time incarcerated, screaming about your innocence and no one's listening to you.
Yeah.
And then finally, one day, someone to actually hear you, that was
Yeah.
a huge thing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Um when you got out, what was the first thing you did? What was going through your mind?
The first thing I did, my family was waiting nearby in the parking lot. So I got to see my son and my nephews, my mom. Um, and then, I spent some time in the parking lot with them for a little while. But the very first thing I did leaving there was find food.
Yeah.
I wanted to eat.
Yeah.
Uh,
What did you
uh,
eat? What was the first thing you ate?
McDonald's was the first
Oh,
restaurant that was nearby. I just told them to find whatever is the first restaurant, and
yeah.
just so happened it was McDonald's.
Yeah. Not terrible. That's good. Yeah.
Coming from where I was at,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
cuisine.
Yeah. Um, so how did you start this organization? So, like, what about your own experience prompted you to start it?
When I came home, there was a lot of difficulties for me to navigate on my own, and unfortunately, for a lot of people, they didn't have. I noticed that a lot of people didn't have the resources that I had. I had a
Mhm.
very big family support, a great network of people. I
Yeah.
had lawyers, I had, legislators. I had a huge network of people, but
Mhm.
even that wasn't enough,
Yeah.
to help me get on my feet in a consistent manner. So
Mhm.
it was more so out of necessity than anything else. I saw others suffering without those resources that I had access to, and I wanted to figure out a way to make that transition easier and smoother for everyone that came after me. Some of the things that I dealt with was just really difficult to deal with and to handle, and I wanted to try to help as much as I possibly could.
Yeah. That's amazing. So did you know how how do you help people? when you started, did you know other people who had gone through what you went through, and or like what was the starting point looking like for you?
So ironically, um, when I was released in that same parking lot where I was at, or my family was, there were actually five exonerees there waiting for me as well. Five guys that I didn't know, I knew nothing about. I didn't, I mean, they'd all spent time in prison and they were there to receive me as well.
Mhm.
And, they offered their hands, they offered their resources, they offered, hugs, a person to talk to as I made my transition. So that was kind of a moment for me where I understood that this was bigger than myself.
Yeah,
Being in prison for something that you didn't do, you're always thinking like it's just me. And prior to that moment, I didn't know that there were others that had gone through the same
yeah,
experience. And we all kind of bonded, and we kind of came up with this idea to start this organization. And not long after, there was another guy and another guy and another guy, and we were watching them struggle, trying to figure out life.
yeah,
So that's where it kind of came from.
yeah. Um, what do you think the biggest misconception about exonerees is?
I think the biggest misconception is that you walk out of prison and you walk into a bag of money. That is a huge
Yeah,
misconception.
yeah, yeah,
People think that like the moment you're released, they just cut you a check and everything's fine. Like that is not how it happens.
yeah. So I was talking to Eric earlier, one of the exonerees, and like, yeah, you really don't get anything or any resources or clothes. You just walked out what you walked in with, basically.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely true.
so so I like what happens from there? Like, what do you do really once you, what if you have no resources? I assume you helped probably some other exonerees who were in that situation, but yeah, what happens?
Nothing happens. The state cuts you loose and they wash their hands with you. That's how it used to be. We've been able to like negotiate a lot of different things with the state, uh, like resources and things that people can use. Unfortunately, Michigan, prior to us having a voice here, fortunately, Michigan was a place that treated you better if you were guilty and on parole than if you were innocent and exonerated.
Mhm.
People on parole got access to tons of resources at the state's expense. Exonerees got nothing. No one, there was no resources for food or healthcare or a way to get back and forth to doctor's appointments. These were all things that we had to bring to people's attention in order for them to understand that exonerees were being mistreated both inside and outside.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Awareness became a huge part of our movement because what we noticed was a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people that wanted to help didn't even realize that these problems existed.
yeah. Um, since you got out, have you seen like a improvement in when people come out, like with since it's been brought um attention to, have you seen an improvement in of how people get out with any resources, or is it just the same? They just come out and they basically have nothing besides, I guess, family or anything like that.
Oh no, I 100% believe that we're making some inroads
Yeah,
with the way that we've handled things.
yeah,
Things that were extremely difficult for me to navigate 2 years ago are easy for the latest set of guys. Like it took
yeah.
me 6 months to get an ID. We just got our last guy an ID in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's great.
Uh, like we've been able to knock down a lot of the barriers that used to exist. Uh,
Yeah,
some of these things are just common sense.
yeah.
People weren't just not aware that these were problems.
Hmm. Um, what work do you think needs to be done to free more people?
Um, Funding for sure. Funding is a huge thing that units are funded by the government that they're well maintained. That's not a true statement.
Mhm.
Conviction integrity units are not well funded. They're subject to budget that comes along with the government agency. You have disagreements within government entities that may not agree with the position of a conviction integrity unit. So I think funding is wrong because if you don't have staff, you're already limited in what you do.
Mhm.
The
Um,
governmental agencies becomes bigger than necessary.
do you think that,
So,
do you think more attention to stories of people who are wrongfully convicted and like putting more attention on that through the media or having more people learn about that would also help free more people, or do you think it's mostly just funding and stuff,
uh,
the law?
attention, media attention definitely
Yeah.
helps. It helps because it brings awareness. It helps people to know that these things are real and they exist and they happen and they're not just, this isn't a Detroit problem. This
Yeah.
isn't a New York problem. Like
Worldwide.
people need to know
Yeah.
exactly. People need to know and understand that, our system is messed up and, we all can do something to help fix it.
Hmm.
But if you don't know that it's broken, you don't
Yeah.
know how to fix it.
Yeah. Um, through everything, who do you think has been your biggest mentor? Or has there been any specific relationships you've formed that have helped you with this organization and just your outlook on everything?
One person, I don't know that I have one person.
Or
Like I've got a lot.
any like specific or group of people like or when you first got out of prison.
Um, First I'm gonna start with Bake Back America. Let's start there because the work that is done with this organization is to me was unheard of before
Yeah.
me and Melissa connected. And we just connected and clicked right from the very beginning. And I think the marriage between the two organizations has been one that it's been easy and helpful and very, very instrumental in helping people return back to society with even the most basic necessities. You
Hmm.
guys provide a service that not very many organizations or people are willing to commit to, right? Basic necessities, toothpaste,
Yeah.
toothbrushes, socks, underwear.
Yeah.
Normal people don't even think about how much
Yeah.
that stuff costs for a month.
Uh-huh.
And for someone released with nothing is a huge monumental change.
Yeah.
Um, Valerie Newman definitely has been a great mentor. She was very instrumental in helping me get released, but she's also been very hands-on and like making connections and helping me think about things from a bigger scale. Right?
Hmm.
A lot of this stuff can be fixed through legislation. I didn't even think about legislators when I went set out to try to change some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I just thought it was, we talk to local people and get it fixed, but why are we thinking local when we should be thinking statewide
Yeah.
or national?
Yeah.
This is a problem for everybody. So she's
Yeah.
been very instrumental there. Gary Torgo is another one. He's been very, very helpful. As he believes in the cause and he wants to do whatever humanly possible to help us fix it and bring awareness to it and he provides a platform that not many people are willing to give.
Hmm. Um, what would you say, have you seen has been like the biggest need when coming out of prison, like necessity? I guess you sort of
uh
touched on that. Like,
the biggest need is just probably the basic necessities, like I said,
yeah.
cosmetics.
Okay.
toothpaste, deodorant, toothbrushes, air mattresses, bedding.
Yeah.
These are all things that get overlooked.
Yeah, I feel, yeah, you don't even think of it and it's crazy. I'm happy that I'm able to help and Big Back America is able to help because no one really thinks of that. And like you said, people don't realize it's an issue. They just think, oh, you get out, you're released, you're free. But like they don't realize that many people don't have any guidance or anything to work with. Some people may not have much family. So I just think it's really important for more people to understand that. So, what do you think? What would you suggest to people who want to help out or um, who want to get involved or want to be educated?
I would say for people that want to volunteer the services, almost every state has an NSS project you can volunteer.
Hmm.
For people that don't have the time to volunteer, I would say to put you in a mind frame of what's needed for an exoneree coming out of prison. Think of a
Hmm.
kid going off to college. They literally need everything.
Yeah.
You like, and that's an analogy that's relatable to a lot of people. Most people have put a kid in college, and that's something that requires a lot of attention to detail, and making sure that that child has everything they need when they leave your
Mhm.
care to go off to college. That's a huge thing. And exonerees are basically in the same situation. We need housing, we need
Yeah.
bedding, we need cosmetics, we need clothing, but on a bigger scale too, we are a nonprofit. We are C3 for those people that are willing to donate. Other things like we can use air miles for travel when we're traveling around advocating. Uber credits, Lyft credits, like those are all things that probably don't cost people anything. They're just bonus laying
Yeah.
around somewhere that can be used. We advocate all across the country. We're not secluded to Michigan. We're not segregated. This is an all-inclusive organization.
Hmm. What was out of the people you've helped, is there a specific situation or exoneree that was significant to you or maybe that came out with really nothing and needed the most help or
Absolutely. Down in Missouri, Kevin Strickland. Kevin Strickland did, I think, 43 years of incarceration,
wow.
and he spent 43 years fighting,
Wow.
literally fighting. And, being in that mindset for so long, the transition was a bit more difficult for him
Yeah.
than it was for most people because all he knew was to fight. And he's still growing. He's still relearning that everything's not a fight and no one's attacking you. We're on your team.
Yeah.
Like, those are things that you have to learn. Mental health is real. It's huge,
Yeah.
and it gets overlooked. Um, doctor's visits. Those are They're huge.
Yeah.
We have doctors in our networks that donate time, attention for free. But
Yeah.
mental health is something that is serious. Kevin Strickland's case, he's not the only one. Liverpool, there's a lot of them there's a lot of us that has spent significant amounts of time incarcerated, and the transition to this level of freedom is very difficult for some people to grasp a
Yeah.
hold of.
Yeah. I also feel like, yeah, I feel like when you're in prison for that long, just coming out and you're in like a different world, you don't really know what happened. You don't have access to, I guess, like the news or stuff like that. So it's really hard to adapt. And I can't even imagine what that's like, which is just crazy to me. Um,
I
yeah,
mean, but even worse, you think about people that had mental issues prior to going into the
yeah,
system.
yeah,
It
yeah,
only gets worse.
yeah, it gets worse from there. Um, so what do you want, like, what would be your what do you want the world to know about this stuff? What would be your big message? or something that you just want to say?
Um, my big message would be there's always room to help. This is something that can affect any and every one of us. Uh, this is not an inner problem. Uh, a problem. We've got people in our organization that are Puerto Rican and white, male, female. I mean, this is not, we've got them from the suburbs, we've got them from the inner cities. There's exonerees from across this country from all walks of life,
Hmm.
literally cops, FBI agents, like no one is exempt when people have too much power.
Hmm.
And wrongful convictions happen when bad people have too much power. I think what I would want folks to know is that you can always help. You may not be able to do everything, but you can do something.
Yeah, it's a good message. Um, that's really all the questions I have. Is there anything else you want to share with me, or anything you want to say, or any questions you have?
Um, Anything else I can do to help, feel free. Let me know. I know I've been kind of slow to respond lately. We've been swamped with
Yeah,
work for some strange reason all of a sudden. If anything I can do to help, let me know.
thank you so much for speaking with me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for getting some of the exonerees. Like, it's really means a lot. And I'm appreciative to hear about your story and others' stories. I just want to let you know how thankful I am. And it really means a lot. And all the work you're doing is really amazing. And I really respect that.
Well, thank you. To be honest, like if not for people like you, students and people that are just, appalled by issues like this within our system, like we wouldn't have a platform. No one would know who we are if it wasn't for people like you asking questions and trying to get the message out there and doing your part, right? Lending your craft to such an important issue. So we thank you more than you realize because, who knows who's going to see these interviews later on?
Yeah.
Who knows who's going to dig this stuff up? And believe it or not, that's how a lot of our work gets mainstream is because other people, stumble upon maybe intentionally or
Yeah.
unintentionally, all, stuff that we've said or done. It's important. And I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Um, so after all the interviews, Melissa and myself will make sure you get to see everything. And well, I'm definitely planning some fundraising events just to get some clothes and all the necessities and stuff. Um, so yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Have a nice drive. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. You too.
Bye.